Tampa made it a game late. They got a couple of goals, pulled a goaltender, not enough. Penguins win 4-2, and that jumps them over Columbus, which lost last night. So the Penguins move into third place and are real close to Washington in second place. And of course, the Islanders still have a 3-point lead over them for first place. So, Gene, this is going to go right down the wire, playoff positioning, and watch out for Buffalo because the Sabres were 2 points behind the Penguins coming into this game, and they're for real this year.
Yeah, the Penguins came into play as close to the basement as to first place, so a lot of hockey to play.
All right, we're going to take your calls here, 412-575-2600. Lots of them online. Let's go to Brad in Saxonburg. Brad, you're first tonight. How you doing?
Good, Bob. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Real quick, I thought Kendall Coyne was a little nervous at first, but boy, I'd like to see her on the announcing table instead of Mott Milbury any day. And I think her daughter's also doing a very
well. Thank you. She's doing. I tell you what, Schofield was terrific, especially in that. I didn't realize how fast she was until I watched that competition in San Jose. Gene, I don't know if you saw what she did, but she was going at 22 miles an hour at one point. Just a fantastic skater and was terrific for Team USA.
Yeah, I didn't see it, but I saw the clips, as you said, and I thought she did a decent job tonight with Pierre McGuire. All
right, let's go out to the lines again. We got Waylon in Washington. Hey, Waylon.
Hey, hi, Bob. Hi, Gene.
Hey.
Hey, guys. Nothing major. It's just, and I really hate to, beat it, for lack of vocabulary. I don't want to hit a dying horse, but like a dead horse. But like, that play on the sidelines with the Rams and the Saints.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Goodell talked about it today.
Yeah, I heard Paul talking about it too, Sonny. He said some good stuff about like the coach didn't make the right calls. But I mean, besides that, like I actually do have a couple friends left, and they tolerate me. However,
Waylon, where are you going here?
All right, check out. Stay with me. Stay with me.
No, I don't have time. We got to get moving. What's your point?
Well, my point is, do you think Drew Brees threw the ball to get a penalty?
I think a lot of quarterbacks, I think quarterbacks see that one-on-one, and they figure the worst-case scenario is incomplete. The best case, either a catch or a penalty. Thanks, Waylon. And I do, first of all, it was one-on-one coverage, and he also know that the defender was not in the right. He wasn't even looking. So, yes, and it was a terrible call, and Goodell said that, they're going to consider a lot of things in instant replay, but I don't know how far they're going to go with this.
Well, I have great respect for Drew Brees, but you're giving him way too much credit there. When that ball left his hand, it had as good a chance of being intercepted as anything else. It should have been intercepted. So I reject that notion. As for what Goodell is going to do, he's not going to take my recommendation, which is to take replay out of the game.
A lot of people would agree with you, Gene, but that's not going to happen. If anything, he sort of intimated that they're going to
expanded.
Expanded, right.
That's
and again, the more we expand, you get to a point where you finally say, oh, you know what, just do it all. What are we doing here? How far are you going to go?
We'll let you know who won on Tuesday.
By the way, he did say there is a clause in the commissioner's contract that gives him the power to restart a game if he feels there was a terrible outcome, and he said absolutely not, I wouldn't have done that. So then my point is, why even have that clause? What would it take for them to totally start a game over or pick it up where the controversy began?
I can't imagine.
No, so stupid rule. Let's go to Bob in Dormont. What's up, Bob? How are you?
Hey, Mr. Pompeani, it's great to speak with you.
You too, thank you.
I want to agree with everything you just said about that Super Bowl play. If you're ever going to restart a game, it would be when the refs missed two calls, head-to-head and early hit. That defender was completely out of position. And specifically, let's face it, I've had it personally with the NFL. The fix looks on. We've got two big market teams in the Super Bowl again.
That's a stretch to me, though, I would think. I mean, that would mean there's so many people involved in something like that.
No, I don't mean a total fix. I'm just saying it coincidentally. We've got New York, we've got New England, Boston, and Los Angeles. We've had the
I'm sure the league doesn't have a problem with that, but
I'm sure that Los Angeles loves it because they need to restart that franchise.
And they have
but
two
the
franchises
bottom line
out there. So
the bottom line is that was an egregious hit. That defender was totally out of position.
Yep. All right, man. Thanks. Appreciate the call. I don't know. We can't dispute that. It was a terrible call. It was one of the worst non-calls ever.
Yeah,
if
but
not
it
the
happens.
worst.
You
But
got to play past that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, see, that's where I disagree. You can't play past it because
Yes, you can.
no, you can't.
How many plays are in that game?
Yeah, but look what happened after that penalty. It changed everything what remained of the
Played
game.
another quarter.
No, they didn't.
Didn't they play overtime?
Yeah, but it wouldn't have gotten to that. That's my point. You say other plays. My point is, if that's called correctly, LA never touches the ball. They kick a field goal, game over.
If this, if that, Bob, there are so many plays in that game.
Yeah,
So many people making so
juncture,
many mistakes all day long.
Inside of a
the
minute.
Officials, they are allowed to make mistakes.
No,
too.
they're not. Not that big. Not when they're looking straight at it and they're 16
They're not
eyes
allowed
on it.
to make a mistake.
Not
they have
in
to
that.
they have to be perfect.
No, in that call, he should be perfect. That was a brutally bad call.
How about the Chiefs' defensive lineman lining up offside?
That was a correct call.
Well, what about that mistake? I mean, that should never happen. He's got to be perfect, right? How could that happen? Yes,
that
it is what you're
was
talking about.
right there in a critical inside of a minute.
This
that
guy
changes
is
everything.
lining
Gene,
up offside.
It's first and goal.
If he doesn't line up offside, his team wins.
Okay.
That's a mistake. He made a mistake. The official made a mistake.
Fine. I disagree.
I know.
Sam in New Bethlehem. What's up, Sam? How are you?
Hey, calm down, guys. Take it easy.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we're okay.
Thanks.
Hey, wanted to comment on the overtime rule. Saw on another sports show, they said they did a study, and the team that receives the kickoff in overtime wins on average 52%.
Right.
So it's only about 50-50.
Right.
So if the team holds them, they're in the driver's seat because now they only have to kick the field goal.
I still don't. The premise is both teams should touch the ball once. It's as simple as I can make it for me.
They don't want an extended overtime, especially if they're going on.
Do they want a
playoff.
fair overtime to determine who goes to a Super Bowl? Do they want a fair overtime or something that just speeds the play up?
I think that with the kickoff, whoever wins the coin, you know what the rules are. This is what it is.
All right. I disagree with that, Gene.
Well, I think with it, yeah, we've noticed this. Thanks for pointing out that stat. The team that wins the coin toss wins 52% of the game, so it's a 50-50 proposition. So, as I said, the coin toss should determine the winner.
There you go. Gene has it all figured out. No replay, coin toss determine the winner.
You win.
And here we go. Let's go to the postgame show.
Right.
All right, let's go to Guy in Ligonier. What's up, Guy? How are you?
Hey, guys, love the show. Just wanted to notice about Derek Brassard missing in the game. Is he trade bait or what?
Yes. I don't think there's any, yesterday there was no indication he was injured. All of a sudden today he had an upper body injury. That was strange to me. And again, if you connect the dots, you come up with something weird. They brought up Teddy Bluger. They have 5 centers. They had to put Cullen to third center. Brassard didn't play. And as of this morning, there was no injury necessarily. Now he has an upper body, Gene. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, looks like something's going on there. I mean, nobody would be surprised if he was traded, right?
No, I wouldn't be. It would be what they want, what they think they need, and would you have to include more than just Brassard to get what you might want?
Yeah, I don't know what they're looking for, really.
All right, let's go to Pete in Squirrel Hill. Hey, Pete.
Hey, guys, how are you tonight?
Good, what's up?
Hey, Bob, about officiating in the NFL. I told Stan Savran this 15 years ago. At face value, Bob, it defies the laws of physics. How in the world do guys in their 50s and 60s chase around world-class athletes in their 20s and 30s?
That's a good point.
It can't be done, Bob. That's the problem. Get younger people in there that can run the field, okay, and can watch the game and govern it more efficiently than guys that have one foot in the grave and the other one on the banana peel. Thank you.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I think some of them are in pretty good shape. Yeah. Have you seen Hercules guns?
Yeah, right.
But the point, I agree with a lot of that. I think at some point they would like to get younger people involved here at that level.
Well, 24 of the NFL's officials are full-time. I wrote a column in the fall about what they do. It's mostly film study and that kind of stuff. But yeah, they could and should get younger. That's probably true. But again, officiating, was controversial, no more controversial than it is today for the entire period of football when there was no replay. Replay hasn't helped it at all. It's made it worse.
Now, and social media has made it worse too, because then it becomes a big pile-on. We got to take a break here. Let's go to line 3. Let's squeeze in Bob first in New Brighton, then we'll take a break. Hey, Bob, what's up?
Hi, Bob. Nice to talk to you.
You too. Thank you for calling.
I'm not going to give you my age, but I go back to the days when Joe Tucker did the play-by-play for the Steelers, and when Fran Rogel went into the line, he said, Fran Rogel into a wall of human flesh.
Is it 85, your age?
Pretty close, Gene.
The
reason I'm calling, I respect both your opinions
Thanks.
on
And we respect
our
yours.
sports items, and I was wondering what both of you would think the way the Steelers are handling the problem with Bell and with Brown, and what do you think the Chief would do if he were still with us? Thank you.
All right, thank you. You probably have a better idea than we would on that one.
Yeah,
although
we would.
Gene knows, I mean, he knows a lot about the Rooney family tree because he's written some beautiful work, including the Chief, the play, and now it was great to see it on TV, by the way.
Yeah,
I thought that was awesome.
That was very great.
What do you? How would you answer that question?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the Chief had some difficult players to deal with in his era too. I mean, he had Big Daddy Lipscomb and some other people, and you know, Chuck Noll had to get rid of Ernie Holmes. You know, it's not really a new thing with the Steelers. I don't think. I'm not sure the older guys would have handled this any differently. I mean, they were always pretty aware of, you know, players who could help them, and you know, the best players have always gotten away with things, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. Captain USA on Twitter says, will Hines Ward have a chance at the Hall of Fame in the future? We'll tackle that question when we come back. Also, Doug Kane says, good win for the Penguins. In the league, need to see the same type of effort against teams at the bottom of the standings going forward. When we come back and when we go forward, we'll talk about Hines Ward. Will he be a Hall of Famer? That's next right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.